joining us today. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We are a part of the West Central Minnesota Food Council, and this is a sustainable agricultural series that is being done all throughout the month of March. So every Tuesday, we're going to bring you a new topic. Today's topic is year-round food production, and you can see the other topics that are on the screen. So we have next week, we're going to be hosting one on animal products, direct marketing of animal products, small scale fruit and vegetable production with an emphasis on community. So community gardens and food forests, as well as some other small fruit and vegetable operations. And then lastly, we'll wrap it up with a regional food aggregation methods. So we hope that this variety of topics will be of interest to you and you'll find some value maybe in the work that you're already doing or how you could maybe share this information with other community partners that you have and growers in your region. And to register, you just need to use the link that's down below on the that first slide there. Okay, West Central Minnesota Food Council. Who are we anyway? We're pretty new. We're only about a year and a half into our operation, and we started as a result of a regional food systems plan. So a group of stakeholders in the West Central part of Minnesota came together to say, we would like to work on food systems work, but at a regional level. And the first thing that was necessary was to do a food systems plan. And as a result of that plan, it incorporated the counties of Becker, Clay, Otter Tail, and Wilkin counties. And then that plan was used to develop a food council. And so then there was representatives from the four counties that come together. And the vision that that group has set up is to create a regional food network that ensures access to healthy, locally produced food while supporting sustainable farming and economic growth. And so West Central Minnesota Food Council meets monthly, and you are welcome to come and participate in those meetings. You don't have to be a regular council member. You can just come and be a part of those. And you also could be a part of the subcommittees. And so to advance the food systems plan itself, we have developed three subcommittees. They include a food security committee, an urban ag committee, and marketing local foods. And so it's the urban ag committee that is sponsoring this education series in March. The public is welcome to attend any of the food council meetings as well as be a subcommittee member. And you can find more information about who we are and what we're up to and more about the education series that at our website, and that's down below there at mnfoodcouncil.org. And as mentioned, the Urban Ag Committee is sponsoring this webinar series, but we kind of also want to let you know what are the goals of the Urban Ag Committee, and it's really to do four things. The first three are really to help increase food production at different levels. So we want to see more people do backyard gardening, that they're growing food for themselves. We want to see more people get into food production as a part-time operation. And we want to see more people get into full-time production. And you'll hear some of those varieties today through our guest speakers. And lastly, we want to be a mechanism for where people go to get resources. So visit our website frequently because we really feel that we'll become a library of resources and a connector to the different issues around food systems. And to learn more about the Urban Ag Committee, you can contact Scott Rosser at the email below. And then lastly, the webinar series is also being co-sponsored by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and we do have a climate action grant that is helping support some of the work of the Food Council. And we're doing three things with that grant. We're strengthening local food aggregation by establishing farmers markets and using farmers markets as a food hub. We're also helping reduce food waste through food recovery initiatives and sponsoring this sustainable ag series. And so as we know, if we support local food production, there's going to be shorter deliveries that can lead to less energy being used, which then has less CO2 emissions on our climate. And we also know that if we support local food systems, that often encourages sustainable farming practices that further contribute to environmental conservation, like preserving soil health and biodiversity. And so today we are focusing on year-round food production. Our guests today are Ryan Pesch from Lida Farm, Brian Yost from Bald Eagle Farm, and Paul Gamhoff from Simply Shrimp. And so during the presentation, you should have access to the Q&A function. As you are listening to the guests, you can certainly type in a question. I would encourage you to say to Ryan or to Brad, and then your question, so that they know who the question is supposed to be geared towards. And then after we're done with the presenters, we will go through that Q&A opportunity. We're not able to open up the mic for you to speak, so it's important that you use the Q&A function for that purpose, and we want to make sure that we answer your question and have some give and take. And then lastly, when we end our webinar, you will be sent a short evaluation, and we would highly encourage you to fill that out. Our funder would like to hear more about you and your reaction to the series that we are presenting today. So with that, we are going to move forward and have Ryan Pesch share about his operation.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Good to be here. And yeah, I welcome any hard questions you might want to put into the Q&A down below. You'll see it sort of down below there as we move on. I'm leaving like right at 1 to go do another thing. So I don't know. I just like talking online, apparently. So Jason, you're the Vanna or something, huh? You're gonna move these things along. Let's keep going. Just a little bit about me. I mean, you heard a little introduction about the Urban Ag Committee. Yeah, I suppose I am one of these lifestyle farmers, right? This is I have a day job, but I'm also a commercial vegetable operator near Pelican Rapids in Lida Township. I've done this now for 21 years, and even though this is part-time, I like to say, my goodness, a lot of agriculture is part-time. I'm always surprised. My mailman, him and his brother do corn and soy west of Pelican and on 1,200 acres, and they do that while holding down day jobs. So it is kind of interesting to me across the spectrum of agriculture who's keeping a day job and who's not keeping a day job and who's going full time and all that rest. But as far as Lida Farm, we are a 20-acre farmstead. I've grown as much as 8 acres of produce in the summer season, and I've grown as far down as about 3 acres in the summer produce season. But today we'll be talking a bit about some of the work that we've done starting in 2014 when we built a deep winter greenhouse and started on winter production. And so we'll go to the next slide, Chase. So I love this picture because it usually makes mothers gasp, and it's like the world's most dangerous construction site, at least that ever existed at Lida Farm here. That it sure looks like that cabin's going to roll off into that hill. But for a deep winter greenhouse, what we're essentially talking about is a passive solar greenhouse where we have a heat sink that is really just made with 4-inch drain tile tubing in rocks, and that's sort of this area down below the floor of the greenhouse. It allows us to capture solar heat and other heat in the greenhouse and retain that heat in the rock bed underneath the growing space. So this is just us this just shows the site where we built up this winter greenhouse. You see my son there with my dog Argo, who we just recently put down. So that's kind of sad. But our greenhouse is 32 feet long, 16 feet wide, and built into this hillside, which I don't recommend, frankly. It should just be built on grade, honestly. And And we built it up against this shed that, or this tourist cabin from the 20s that we had brought in on site from a nearby resort who wasn't using it, and we brought that in. As we've used it for intern and apprentice housing ever since then, since 2014. And actually, in front of that space, we actually then also built a root cellar. So you can picture, you see one side of the L here, the initial excavation, but it's sort of excavated as an L with a root cellar to the left in front of that cabin and the greenhouse to the right. So if we click forward, Jason, you should see hey, here's the finished greenhouse, and that mound in front, in between that cabin and the greenhouse, is a root cellar, which is connected and accessible through the greenhouse. But again, 16 by 32, it's a fairly modest sized greenhouse. But a thing that, besides the passive solar portion, that really makes it a winter greenhouse, if you will, it's highly insulated. And with and in this case with timber construction, a lot, however, are done with ICF block construction, so that they're highly insulated, and with a wood frame on the front, and then polycarbonate panels. I recommend a triple layer, but I just have a double on this one. So the way I've always thought about this, and like why I got into winter growing to begin with, is for me, I like to do this thing. I try explaining it by this little curve I have here, which I call the seasonal epidemic time curve. So when we built this in 2014, I'd already been doing 10 years of commercial production here at Lida Farm with my wife, and I would say that commercial vegetable production in season, in field, looks like that curve. It's like a hockey stick. It's like all winter, it's boring, nothing. And then once you start planting out in the field, it might get a little, it starts to ramp up a little tiny bit in terms of your time, effort, and energy in the spring when we're doing some greenhouse work. And then it just goes straight up top. And it's sort of like, basically you go from, I don't know, the middle of May until at least the middle of September, and you're at this weird peak, and then you feel like collapsing and at the end of the season. It's insane. It's kind of a wild ride, if you will. And so the way I brought this about, or got into this, is that how could I kind of take that curve down a little bit? How could I have some revenue in this off season where I'm just sort of in this holding period, and do a little activity in the off season? Might bring that curve down a little bit, so I'm not so dependent on a very wild ride in the middle of the summer season. And so that's how I thought about it. That's why I got into it. And for me, I got into it, I feel like at the time where it made sense for me to get into it. I've been 10 years here at Lida Farm, but I was also 3 seasons down in the Twin Cities where I got into commercial vegetable production before I even moved up here to Otter Tail County. So I always like to say that, yeah, okay, winter growing, it's neat, but it might not be the place to start. You certainly need some, I would say you kind of want to have a base of skills on which you're building. All right. If I can grow a tomato in the middle of the summer, and I can grow that well at scale, only then, after I'm doing those things well, should I challenge myself, if you will, and take on a whole new, or build a whole new set of skills for winter growing. And also we got into this at the point at which we already had sort of an existing customer base and existing market. So I knew that it would make sense for me if I had product in the winter and in the off season. It'd be very easy for me to begin to sell that product, because I already had a solid customer base to begin with. So is winter growing right for you? I say, hey, you got to sit and assess, like, am I ready to challenge myself with winter growing? Do I have the chops in order to begin taking that on? Because it is different. And B, do I have the market or customer base to begin with, and it makes sense for me to move into that next step? For me, I was 10 years in before I moved into this step, and I felt good about the first 2. So that's why I got into winter growing. This is kind of what it looks like on the inside. We are growing in containers. A lot of us in the winter greenhouses, we got into this thing about growing into plastic gutters. We call them gutter trays for whatever reason. You get a 10-foot tray and you can cut them into a 10-foot length of plastic gutter at Menards or wherever, and we cut them into 3 pieces in order to make, 3 foot and some change tray, which is very easy to handle. But it allows for enough depth of the medium. We're growing in a soil mix or a potting mix medium that we're growing into. So if we had something that's very shallow, especially with winter growing, where they're in there for a fairly long time, we might not have as much energy. That's one thing I was telling people about. It's like, do you have enough energy in your soil profile to really produce a good green, if you will? And so, as you see here on the left, this is how we're traditionally growing. We have grown some of these, I call them, or Sue Wicca, who I used to work with, calls them mesogreens. They're not really microgreens, or we're just looking at cotyledons, but we're a little stage above that. And so some of those we're growing in seedling trays, 10-inch by 20-inch seedling trays. We've done that as well. I've experimented a little bit with LED lights in order to move that stuff along, to shorten that growing period. But certainly one thing that I've learned in winter growing, at least in terms of production, is one, especially before you hit the solstice, things take a long time to grow. And even if we are managing heat well, it's very difficult to manufacture the sun. And so we're dealing with heat issues, and we are dealing with light issues. And light is the primary limiting factor in this situation, especially pre-solstice. So we get post-solstice, winter solstice, and the days start getting longer. The growing gets much easier. But even in that deep winter time period, whether you're on one side or the other of solstice, something that would normally take, 30 days in order to get to maturity, a green that you would cut, easily taking 6 weeks plus. And so there's just a longer time frame there. Lastly, the one other point that I would make just about winter growing in a winter greenhouse is that many times people think that this really just is an issue of energy and heat, and that's really not the case. Like, hey, if I'm worried about something, Ryan, there's not going to be enough heat in order to have these things go. And what I have found in winter growing in this environment is that the primary factor or the primary problem, let's say, I have, has more to do with moisture. It's and so one challenge I really had with greens, maybe this is getting too deep into production, is that plants have a hard time transpiring, if you will, in a very tight envelope in which there isn't fresh air coming in constantly, right? You can think of 10 days where it's very cloudy and cold in the middle of the winter. There's not the fan kicking on that's pulling in the fresh air. You can get tip burn if you're not properly ventilating the greenhouse. And the moisture issues in the greenhouse in the winter are a much bigger issue than some of the heat issues. So if we move on, that's a little bit about production, what this looks like. And what I found after, I've done a lot of, after getting a number of years into winter growing and hanging out my shingle and selling CSA shares for the winter, what I found is actually it's a lot more efficient, a lot cheaper for me to grow early winter greens in the early part of the season in a high tunnel. So this is just typical, what I'll call early winter greenhouse growing in a high tunnel with remay or a row cover in a 30 by 70 standard high tunnel here. We do have some backup heat in order to keep things right above 10 below, where we can get some ground freezing issues. But you would be amazed how well row cover works in a high tunnel as you go into December. We routinely grow up till Christmas when here in the high tunnel. And these are greens that we would be planting, and things that we'd be planting, things like radishes, a lot of salad mix, spinach. Spinach is very, very hardy. green, but arugula, some other types of greens and stuff, um, and these salad turnips as well. And we'll clear the greenhouse, this high tunnel, as we're towards the end of September. And so we're doing plantings usually in early October in order to get this to maturity as we go into the colder months. So we combining these two things works very, very well. So a little bit about kind of the business side of it and how this has worked for us. When we've done a winter greenhouse growing, and actually this winter and last winter, I haven't done this because I've gotten very wrapped up into, I don't know, moving in and expanding a food co-op, and I'm playing general manager as well as capital campaign committee chair. So it's sort of curtailed some of my growing abilities. But the way we've done this is via a winter CSA. We do a summer CSA, and we've done that since 2005 here at Lida Farm. And so what we began offering was a winter CSA where we do 7 deliveries over the course of the winter. The first one, even though you might say it's not winter, we start with a Thanksgiving box, right? So a Thanksgiving box, a Christmas box, and then the rest are past the New Year's. And for me, I'm always thinking about like, how do I give somebody a good box? And what we're doing is we're taking very cheaply raised roots from a root cellar. We're combining them with those fresh greens that are either from the high tunnel or from the deep winter greenhouse, and doing that. There's also, I think, in terms of the business, a lot to be said about wrapping up onions or starting onions and stuff in order to save some money on that as well. So we move on. This is just my numbers just to show what that looks like, but it's profitable. And next, Jason, I think that might be it. I would just say, I think I really hit on this at the beginning. But if you do go into winter greenhouse production, these are not cheap, right? I spent about $16,000 to build that polycarbonate stick-built greenhouse. And so I think there's many other places a person could start, namely, doing winter growing in a high tunnel before you go into a deep winter greenhouse. So with that, I'll just leave it. If you want to ask me any kind of hard questions, put them in the Q&A. I'll be here till a little before 1. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Ryan, for that presentation. You have Ryan's email address here and phone number if you want to contact him directly. And as he mentioned, please direct your questions from today's presentation into our Q&A. We're going to move on with Brad Yost and from Bald Eagle Farm, and he has a hydroponics operation that wants to share with you. Brad, want to take over?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. First time doing anything like this for me, so let's see how it goes. So yeah, we have a hydroponic greenhouse that we grow lettuce and herbs in what's called deep water culture. That's a large pond with rafts that hold the plant float on top of the water. You'll see some pictures in later slides here. And we're located by Starbuck, and we've been growing we planted our first seeds in August of 2023. We started our dirt work the spring of 2023, built the greenhouse, and started growing. And we brought our first product to market in December of 2023. So yeah, we've been going about a year. We've been just kind of serving our local area so far, grocery stores and restaurants, and looking to expand our business and grow more. So advance, please. So there's a picture of our greenhouse. It's 30 feet wide and it's 144 feet long. It has timber framing along the bottom side of it that retains the pond, uses the greenhouse poles to retain the water in there. And then on the end that you can see in this picture is the north end. That darker colored portion is a louver that opens up. Then there's a cooling cell inside of that. And then on the south end, is polycarbonate material, and then there's 3 large exhaust fans that turn on and off as needed to control the temperature. And kind of how we got into it is I have a couple of family members that are doing this. One's in Pennsylvania and one's in Western South Dakota. And there's also a group that I'm part of people that are doing this successfully across the US and a few actually in Canada and growing year round. So definitely echo Ryan's thoughts on sunlight length and cloudy weather. This winter we struggled a lot with cloudy weather in November and December. Really slowed our product down, our growth rate, and got into some fungus issues just because of the humidity and having to keep everything pretty tight to conserve heat. So advanced. Okay, so that there is kind of a progression of how our crop grows. We start with a pelleted seed in a tray that has a hole in the middle, and we have a seeder that we drop a seed into every one of those holes. There's 162 plugs in one tray. This was some of the earlier pictures when we started out. We've been planting more than what the table will hold now, and then they'll germinate. We'll wrap them up in plastic. They'll germinate for a couple days, and it's interesting. Lettuce does not take long at all to germinate. It pops a root almost instantly after it hits the plug. And then given that time, 3-4 days, and then we move it into the next picture. You can see the trays, and that's an ebb and flow system that the product sits in under lights, and then we feed it with nutrient water from the pond. That picture, the next picture there in the middle, shows the pond. It's not covered in this picture. This shows the water. There's approximately 40,000 gallons of water in there. And then you can see the walkway that goes across. There's a circulation system in the water that rotates, keeps the water circulating, and also a diffuser hose that oxygenates it. And then, if you go to the next picture, that's a summer picture. Yep. You see that next picture there. That's a summer picture. And romaine mostly on the right-hand side. And then on the left-hand side is our lettuce that we put in our mixes. And mostly those all go together in a mix. And then you can see the package there. It's a 6-ounce package that we sell to grocery stores. Next one, please. This is a more recent picture. I wanted to get something that showed kind of the progression of how our product grows. We put it in the pond on the south end, the far end in this particular picture. You can see it's fairly small. And then we just, as we harvest, we reload the pond on the south end, harvest on the north end, reload the pond on the south end, and just keep pushing it down. Since that's just a foam raft on water, it pushes quite easily. You just get it going and it'll just keep going down and it just keeps growing as it goes. You can see our grow lights there. We do put a little bit of supplemental light in. I sometimes wonder if it actually does much for the product, for the crop, because it seems like in the winter, our grow length in the summer is we've went down to 5 weeks, I think, at the shortest, and 8 weeks in the winter. And then if you think about that, we have to have that much more space in this pond. So as we have to extend our grow length, we have to have more room in the pond. We have more weeks worth of product in the pond, so it gets smaller in a way, so we can't harvest as much. So not only is it growing slower, we can't harvest as much. So the winters can be pretty challenging trying to keep it growing and putting light into it, keep it warm, keep the water warm. 65 degrees is about as cool as we want our water for the plants. And then the air temp is the warmer it goes, the warmer you keep it, the better it grows. So we usually try to keep it in the high 60s, low 70s. But a greenhouse loses a lot of heat in the winter. So that can be a challenge. Next one. This is a picture of our control, our environmental control. Off on the right there, that monitors the environment. It opens the shutter, turns the fans on, turns the heaters on, turns them off as needed. And then just some of our equipment there, sink and a in use or a tankless water heater that we use too. So all very important. I had a challenge this last winter. We lost power, and my alarm system relies on power to alert me if the temp drops. So we actually had a partial freeze. We lost probably, I don't know, 10 or 20% of our product. That the little plants that were spread out on those rafts toward the south end, they must have cooled off quicker, and yeah, we lost a lot of them. So next winter, I need a better system. I'd actually like to have a standby generator. It seems fairly important when an hour can make a difference between life and death with small plants like that. So pests and diseases, that is something that we have to deal with. In the summer, anything that flies by when the fan's on gets drawn in, and the greenhouse is a fairly conducive environment for reproduction for a lot of pests. So we only use OMRI listed products as needed. Aphids had been a real problem for us. That's been our main pest that we've had in the winter or in the summer. And then in the winter, we'll get powdery mildew from high humidity and lack of air circulation and air exchange, kind of what Ryan was talking about on his system there. But it does seem like that if we stay on top of it, prevention is always the best. Try to keep the environment as good as we can with heat and with fans and all of that. And that goes a long way. It's kind of like it's about being about as tied down as running a dairy farm. I've heard it compared to that, because you can't go very far from it, especially when it's cold, when it's hot. Something happens, you need to be there. That hasn't been too much of a problem for us. And then also spray drift from crop spraying. It's very necessary to have a good relationship with your neighbors. We live in a farming community. We've got fields all around our greenhouse, and they've done very well. The neighbors have, with whatever they're spraying their crops with, and they'll let me know what they're spraying, what the wind direction is. And sometimes if we felt like there's a danger, we'll go manually close everything up. We have a short time we can do that in the summer, otherwise it'll get too hot in there. But for the most part, the local farmers have done very well with being very careful on that, because this hydroponic lettuce is extremely sensitive to any kind of broadleaf control. So if you can smell it on the air, it's gonna have a potential danger for our plants. Advance, please. Okay, so that's another picture of just the greenhouse and our products. That is another summer picture, and you can see the crop is very tall and very, very full. You can kind of see there's a shade cloth on the greenhouse. We put that on to try to limit the sunshine. Lettuce is a cool season crop. It does not like heat. It'd be best if it would never go above 75 degrees, but I've seen it 85 in there. Even with the evaporative cooler, it is hard to keep it much cooler in there than it is outside. So yeah, definitely does better at cooler temperatures. Right now, our product looks really nice. It's growing a lot better. We've got a lot more sunshine lately. And also, as noted there, a support group of experienced growers is very important. I can't stress that enough. Um, the growers that I deal with, a lot of them have been in the business for 10 years plus, and there's a lot of new ones too. And just seems like a lot of what works is developed by experimentation. Somebody has tried it, knows it works or it doesn't work. And so, yeah, I'm on a group of about 50 or 60 growers. And it seems like for any question that I have, somebody's tried it, somebody has an answer. Some of them are even developing equipment to help this type of business succeed. Um, Better equipment for oxygenating water and seeding and all that. So for us, as far as a market in your area, I'd say there is. You'll have to develop it, find it. Um, Good question to ask when you go to visit somebody if they're interested in your product is if they're interested in local grown product. Because if they have what they want, what they need, if they're not interested in it, you're wasting your time and theirs. So we've been fortunate. We have found people, restaurants and grocery stores that are very happy to have our product. They promote it, a lot of them, and that's wonderful. That's encouraging. We are hoping to expand here this summer, see if it works out, but double our size and go some more directions with our product, and hopefully that works out. Is there any more? Is it the last slide, or is there another one? Yeah. So thank you all for listening. There's our contact information. I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested, have more questions, interested in our product, maybe you want to buy it, use it in your restaurant or grocery store, whatever it is. Yeah, thankful to Jason and Megan for organizing this. And it's been a good experience for us. It's definitely stretched our comfort zone. We do this mostly with our family. We don't hire a whole lot of labor, so that's been good. Thank you all.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
As Brad mentioned, his contact information is on the screen there. So if you want to take that down and reach out to him personally, you can certainly do that. If you have questions for him that you want to answer today, again, we would encourage you to use the Q&A function and type a question in there for him, and he can take a peek at that and get those answered. And we'll address some more of those after our next presentation as well. So moving on, we have Paul Gamhoff from Simply Fresh Shrimp. And this is a unique operation, as are the past two. And this is pretty neat. So we are going to turn it over to Paul to hear more about this innovative product that he's growing right here in Minnesota.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you. Thanks again, Jason, for the invite, and glad to be here and to be able to share a little bit of our story and where we've been and where we're heading in the future, anyways. So, why don't you flip to the next slide? Give a little background on myself. Born and raised on a dairy farm, up at 4:30, quarter to 5 in the morning, every morning to milk the cows, 7 days a week. You know that the dairy farm is a very demanding facility, and we did get out of the dairy operation in 2015. Sold the dairy cattle, and we had all of the buildings still on the farm yet. And is there a way of reutilizing existing structures? And my mom had come up with an idea about raising saltwater shrimp. I wanted to dig into it for a full year, do some research on it before we got started on it. The only thing is, we had a hailstorm that came through, wiped our crops out, wiped our custom work out, and it was the calling to get started into the shrimp facility, or into shrimping anyways. So bless that hailstorm ended up coming to be a blessing in disguise in the long run. Like I say, we started back in 2016. We remodeled our one of our calf barns, we ended up setting up 17 swimming pools. So you can see in the picture there to the right, just raising saltwater, Pacific white saltwater shrimp in swimming pools. Keep the costs down as low as you can. And boy, it was fun. It was very exciting. One of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest hurdles here in the shrimp industry for the United States is getting your babies, getting your PLs, your post larvas, is what we call them. And there is a couple hatcheries down in Florida, down in Texas. The only downside is that hurricane season has had a tendency of knocking the hatcheries out. And now you've got a facility that's up and operational. You need babies on a monthly basis. Where you're going to get them. And back in 2019, Barb Frank partnered up with me, and we started our own shrimp hatchery, and we call that Minnesota Shrimp, anyways. So next slide. Our vision. We're excited from the hatchery the day that they're born. My son Frederick. We take pictures of the shrimp on a daily basis. Traceability, accountability. We can trace our shrimp from the day that they're born all the way up into the day that they're packaged and out the door anyways. We pride ourselves locally grown, antibiotic free, sustainable, very minimal water discharge, and we're just proud of what we do here. Next slide. Again, this is a hatchery. It's an RAS system, so we're constantly reusing the water. We've got a tremendous water filtration system to remove any of the feces, the ammonia nitrates, nitrites. It's a very high grade water anyway, so we've got to have pristine water because to get raising the shrimp. And I kind of smile. Yes, we are a shrimp farmer. We are raising shrimp here, but it all comes back on water quality. What did the water do yesterday? What is the water doing today? And what is it going to be doing tomorrow? So water testing is just a huge, yep. A lot goes into water testing every day. And I got to take a step back here. When I was young going through school, never in my wildest dreams did I ever expect to be a shrimp farmer. Knowing what I know today on water quality, water management, keep your eyes, keep your ears open because you never know where you're going to end up down the road anyways. And you flip to the next one. So I get excited about this because this is a baby shrimp. This is how these shrimp here are approximately 18 hours old. So when the female spawns, the eggs are actually 3/4 the size of a mosquito larvae when they're born. Over the next couple hours, they go through all of their stages. And like I say, these guys here are about 18 hours old. And it is so neat. We microscope all of our tanks on sometimes it's a couple times per day. But you can tell how many hours or the growth rate just by the stages of the shrimp. And why is that so critical? What do you feed a baby shrimp? We feed them algae. Algae is the main thing. I'm getting too far into the weeds anyways, but we need to know the size of the shrimp so that we can adjust feed accordingly. Because when you guys have had fish growing up, I would assume anyways, what happens if you overfeed your fish? Bloop, things don't work out. And it's the same way with the shrimp too anyways. So water management is very critical. Look to the next step. There we go, swimming around. Yep. So exciting. They're in the hatchery from the time that they're born to the time that we move them out of the hatchery is roughly 21 days. When we're moving them out of the hatchery, they weigh approximately 0.0002 grams in size. So equivalent to your eyelash with two little eyeballs is what they are. When we get them into the grow-out facility, we'll start them in a nursery tank for 30 days. We can take them from that 0.0002 grams up to about 1.3 grams in size in the next 30 days. Then we'll move them into an intermediate tank. For the next 30 days. So at that time, then we get them up to about 6.5 grams, and then they get moved into a grow out tank or a finishing tank for the next 30 days. And that's where we get them up to a 22 to 25 gram shrimp. So from the time that they come into the grow out facility, it's typically a 90 day rotation anyways. So it's I just get so excited about it because there's so much opportunity for growth. We import approximately 90% of the shrimp that we consume here in the United States. So the demand is big. Another thing too, I know this is about food, but the endless opportunities of new technology that's coming online. It's exciting to see where aquaculture, the potential and where this could be down the road for Minnesota anyway. So why don't you flip to the next one? Yep. Again, just Minnesota shrimp to be able to provide high quality PLs for the upper Midwest. We are selling babies in the upper Midwest. I've got next week several shrimp farms in the area coming up to get babies from us. One thing that we've learned too, we're in the process of wrapping up financing on a brand new grow out facility. Hopefully, we'll be breaking ground later on this spring, anyways. But again, to get the cost per pound down, we're excited about this next facility, anyways. Why don't you flip to the next one? Some of the things. Again, you bring a new business, like Brad and Ryan made the comment, you're doing something that hasn't been done here anyways, and some of the negative or the criticisms that a person will get, and when we got started, I got told so many times, you won't be able to grow shrimp in the state of Minnesota, and reflect back the proven mistakes, we've been able to come cross those hurdles as we've come. Has it all been successful? Nope, but I can tell you 1,200 ways how not to do it. But we've got a good concept to gather today, and it's going good. No markets. Where are you going to go? We've been able to sell 100% of our meat right out the front door. Anyways, when our meat facility was up and operational, it was so neat to be able to visit with consumers, to share the story that we've had, the quality of the meat. It's been nice visiting with the consumers anyways. Our costs are significantly higher than what the imported markets are. We've got the building cost, we've got the heating expenses here in the state of Minnesota. Everything, all of our supplies comes in by UPS, FedEx, our shipping costs. But the thing is, we're not competing with the overseas markets. You can lay a hot dog on the table and you can lay a steak down on the table. They're both meats, but we've got a higher quality meat, and we're able to move the product out the door as fast as we can get it up to size. And going back, we've been approached by several wholesalers, retails, grocery store chains, to be able to move the product. It's just that we've got to get this next grow out facility built and increase production anyways. So I like to talk fast, and I like to answer questions. This is more about you guys than about me anyways. But I'm going to hand it back over, and if you got questions, I'm excited to answer.
Yeah, and we are at that juncture of our webinar that we can bring on some of those questions. Hopefully, you've been putting those in the question and answer section. And Megan, are you able to take a peek at those and maybe bring those forward to the guys?
Yeah, sure thing. We've got lots of questions through the whole webinar, which is really exciting. Maybe we'll just start with the questions right now for you, Paul, since you are on the screen and there are some unanswered ones. So the first person asks, what kind of shrimp are these? I imagine there are many species.
Yes, they're Pacific white shrimp. They're saltwater shrimp. We keep all of our salinity. We're trying to mimic the ocean to the best of our ability. So we keep our water at about 32 parts per million for salinity. Temperature is very critical. We keep all of our water at about 84 degrees. So I smile every day in the wintertime. I get to work in a short sleeve shirt because the building is nice, it's hot, it's humid, and I get to work in a tropical environment on a daily basis. And I love that anyways. So where does the waste go? We run a biofloc system. We put a good bacteria in the water that will break down that nutrients. It's we're like I say, we're replicating the ocean environment to the best of our ability. That good bacteria also breaks down the ammonia, nitrite in the water. So it's having a perfect balancing system to keep your water in check. We do discharge. It's just a small percentage of water that we do discharge, but it's extremely minimal. The water is more valuable to me than what the shrimp are. So water discharge, we keep it to a very minimal, anyways.
Okay, and then where does 90% of the shrimp come from?
Overseas, Asian market.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
And then Sue asks, you were in my class during my ag student teaching under your dad and Doug Hansen. I know I didn't teach anything about aquaculture, but great to see how you adapted the farm. Now I work at the Minnesota Department of Ag, and my questions are, what kind of biosecurity do you need at your facility? And are you able to bring in youth like FFA to learn about this new type of enterprise?
A very good question. Biosecurity in the hatchery is very critical. There's actually only three of us that go into the hatchery. We wash up, we boot up, very, very biosecurity. And the reason being is that being that the babies are being sold to other facilities in the United States, we send shrimp down to the Path Lab in Arizona quite frequently to get tested. We just need to make sure that the babies are yeah, that we're not infecting anybody else. We also have got a full-time vet that comes up and also does herd health check on our shrimp for our babies going down the road. When we do get this meat facility built, we will be having an open house before we get shrimp back in there, and would love to give you guys tours.
Okay, and what are your plans for an expansion of the shrimp facility?
So we're looking at we'll be the building that we'll be building this summer is roughly about 20,000 square feet. So just getting your cost per pound down, being more efficient, and we've got a lot of new technology that we're looking forward to be trying and moving on. And this facility that we're building is something that we're hoping that can be replicated throughout the upper Midwest or throughout the United States.
And then the same person asks, can you get revenue insurance for your facility?
Not yet. The USDA is working on that. There was a pilot program this year for a couple counties down south. But again, it just takes time. And no, there is not. We're on our own as of today. But I do look that USDA will change that eventually.
And to help improve your water quality, have you thought of adding oysters to clean your saltwater?
Yes, there was tests done in Indiana raising oysters, and being that it's a biofloc system, I think an oyster can filter I don't up to 50 gallons of water per day, but being that it's a biofloc system, uh, the two just don't work out together.
Can you spell biofloc just so I'm spelling this correctly?
bio/FLOK.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And did you have consultants for planning, or how did you learn all of the needs and even know where to start with aquaculture?
Yep. So where do you turn to when you come up with an idea here? Where do you turn to? Where do you turn to research? You turn to the internet, and that was one thing when I got started in on this facility or started researching on this. I mean, this is where you go. You go to the internet, read and learn as much as you possibly can. And I will tell you this that. That's what probably motivated me the most, because the data that's on the internet is not true and factual when it comes to raising shrimp. And the reason being that is that everybody's water source is different, and everybody's if I released my data today on how to raise shrimp, it's not true and factual because it is specific to our water here, 10 miles south of Wilmer anyways. So each shrimp facility has got to figure things out on their own, or design their own protocol for what their water is doing. So Kentucky State University, Andrew Ray put out some very good videos probably back in 2018, 2019. That's probably the best information that I've got, or that's out on the internet to get people thinking about it or planning about it.
Great. And what happens with your spent salt is the last question. Then we'll move on to the other questions.
Yeah, I see the guy that wrote that in too. Anyways, we have zero, or we constantly reuse the same water. Like I say, it's zero water discharge, but I would like to work that small percent that we are discharging. I would like to work with AURI and figure out a value added product that we can use with that spent salt. Anyway, so I'm looking forward coming up with a byproduct eventually down the road with it.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Paul, for your engaging presentation and answering the questions. And we'll move on to some of these other questions with the other speakers who have already, looks like, had a chance to answer. Let's see. So I'll just start up at the top here. Ryan, what was the approximate cost to start up your winter greenhouse? I don't know if you want to just answer that out loud, or I can speak through it. It's up to you. Oh, that's right. He had to leave at 1, so I'll just run through his questions. I'm sorry, I forgot. So yes, he had a startup cost of $16,000 for a 16 by 32 foot greenhouse, but that was back in 2014. So he anticipates that the structure would certainly cost more today. And then, are we getting away from peat moss in soil mixes? Ryan said not yet for him. He certainly knows all the concerns and challenges with peat moss, but it just is too easy to not use right now. Have you applied for or supplemented any farm costs with grants? And have you supplemented your income with off-farm work? Ryan said yes, he has a day job, but no, he has not received a grant for the winter greenhouse. They received EQIP High Tunnel grant, but that's about it. And they funded the winter greenhouse in part with a Kickstarter fund. So that's fun. And next question, Ryan, do you have any issues with rodents in your high tunnel during the winter, or how do you control them? Ryan said, yes, it is an issue in the winter. No, but not in the high tunnel. He did not go into how he controlled them, though. And then, did you have experience before starting your own endeavor? Are there any recommended updated resources for beginners? And Ryan went into talking about how he first started out as a farm apprentice. Um, through Foxtail Farm near Osceola in 2000 and 2001. And that is the way that he learned the craft of vegetable production and the best way to learn, in his opinion. And I will back that up. I have traveled across the country and lived on various farms, and it's invaluable to just get your hands dirty working for someone else. It's really the best way to just engage and participate. He offered the suggestion to WOOFIT, which is the Worldwide Opportunities for Organic Farmers Association. You can find a work-share, internship, or a part-time or commercial operation, and that will just help you move through with actual living practice and skill building. And then we've got questions for Brad. Have you looked into adding a fish product to your system? You said no, but would you like to expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, I hit enter and then it was gone. So um, it seems like the systems that I'm familiar with that do this, fish is more the focus than lettuce or than greens. And I guess our focus has been to focus on the green side of it. And I mean, I'll never say never, but at this point, that looks like a big step to try to add that to what we're currently doing. I think it would take another facility. You can't really do the fish and the plants in the same pond, I don't think, what I've looked at. So yeah, it'd be a big step for us, I think.
Great. And then also to you, Brad, for heating and cooling, do you know anyone who is using geothermal heating in their systems? You said there are some using boiler systems with biomass, and you're not really aware of anyone using geothermal. If you wanted to expound on that anymore.
Um, yeah, I know that there's a grower in Wisconsin using burning turkey litter, and there's one in Illinois burning wood chips, and there's a couple, I believe, that are burning coal in a boiler system. And definitely, we want to go a boiler system at some point, just because you need a lot of heat to run a greenhouse. There's a lot of heat loss, so I think it's a cheaper way of producing heat than using propane like we're currently doing. But I haven't done a ton of research on that yet, but that's kind of the direction that we're headed.
Great. And someone asked if you have a website yet. You said not yet, but you need to work on that. Awesome. Maybe that's something the Food Council could help you with, even just to get maybe something as simple as like a Facebook page started. But that would be great for you to have for visibility.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not the first time I've been told that.
I'm sure. But also you seem to be doing well just by word of mouth, which is, a sure sign of the quality of product that you produce.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. And then, were there any other questions for you, Brad? I don't think so. I'll go back to another question that was asked for Ryan. It was, Ryan, in your high tunnel, do you use vent fans or roll-up sides for temperature control? Is the temp volatility an issue this time of year? How do you manage it? And Ryan said that he does have roll-down sides, and he specifies they are the Zimmerman high tunnel. And he does have a vent fan on a thermostat. So yes, heat is in the high season is very much an issue. He basically has both sides down all season once they get into June, with the exception of storms, which is when they will roll it up. And someone asked about land access. How do people find land, whether it's through family or Zillow? people are having a little bit of unease with the current state of the federal funding. What Ryan suggested, what he did was he sold his 2-bedroom starter home on the west side of St. Paul, and it was for farm listed by Realtor. So basically, it paid the same amount for a 2-acre farm with outbuildings in Otter Tail. And so they were able to kind of, just by moving out of the cities, that was a way to have enough equity to keep it going. And then we have a couple. Well, I don't know. Actually, it looks like that's about all of the questions that we went through. Was there any other questions for us? It looks like I don't know if you want to take it over from here, Jason. We maybe have a couple more minutes. Was there anything else you wanted to
Yep.
go over?
Yep. Just want a couple things as we wrap up then. We just want to thank the gentlemen for sharing today and their innovative operations. We're so impressed with what you do, and we hope that you continue to lead the way for many others who can help build out the network that you guys are already starting. And so we're impressed, and we want to encourage you to do more. And so I hope that others have thought about continuing on with the education series. We have 3 more weeks left, and so we would encourage you to sign up for that. You can register at the link below that you can see there at mnfoodcouncil.org. And our next week will be on direct marketing of small scale animal products. You can contact me if you have any questions about the Food Council, and you will receive a link to this recording. When we're done with the webinar, you should be sent out in a short evaluation. And in the next couple days, watch for an email from us with the recording and another opportunity to fill that evaluation out if you can't do it momentarily. So with that, thank you for your time, and we hope to see you again next week. You can
Thank
stop
you,
the recording.
everybody. Yes, I'm going to hit stop right now.